I drew a picture of a man holding an axe and a woman's body on the ground with blood around it. So obviously the police knew then that I was a witness to what had happened.
I constantly think, I'm going to be another statistic, and I don't want that to happen.
You never think that your boyfriend is going to shoot you in the face and kill you.
At 26 years old, Daniel Benoit has already outlived his mom.
We always had a swing set outside, so birthday parties and stuff like that, Mom would always take us out on the swings, and just so many memories that I have from her that I'll cherish for the rest of my life.
Then there are the memories he would rather forget.
I remember pretty much everything.
On a warm July night in 1997, 4-year-old Daniel was asleep in his bedroom when his father, Dale Ogden, came in his home. Ogden, a menacing figure who abused Judy Ogden and her 2 children before she cut it off for good. The couple was heading for divorce, the court order telling him to stay away, now inconsequential.
I remember he came into my room and he woke me up, and what this man had told me, as sick as this may seem, he said that there was a dog in the house that was trying to hurt Mom. And he said, you're gonna hear some screams and some noises, but he said, I'm gonna kill the dog. And he basically took my hand and walked me out in the hallway, where he then proceeded into my mother's room. And, he basically just went at her with brute force. I watched my mom literally take, her last breath, so to say, in a way that I should never have to do that.
His father cleaned up, grabbed Daniel's baby sister from her crib, and took the 2 children back to his home in nearby Kippens. The next day, Dale Ogden brought the children back home. He took a neighbor's ladder to Judy Ogden's bedroom window.
This guy brought me up the ladder. So then not only, did I have to relive it, like the night before that, I had to look at it in broad daylight. So as we went up the ladder, the last image that I ever remember seeing is my mother's body laying on the floor next to her bed. And it's probably an image that I may never shake out of my head.
Ogden was often seen in the yard playing with her 3-year-old son and 14-month-old daughter, children that are now in the care of social services. Neighbors say it's difficult.
Daniel Benoit's own evidence would be a key piece to the RCMP's puzzle, drawing a picture of a man with an axe and a woman on the floor.
Get out of my face, you want to...
Dale Ogden was sentenced in 2000 to life in prison for second-degree murder. The judge set his parole eligibility at 14 years.
I was thinking about my future, and they had given me so much confidence. I wanted to go on to be a lawyer.
I think you have a different outlook on life when stuff like this happens to you. I mean, you've experienced so much at a young age that, you gain knowledge that most people don't get within their lifetime.
It wasn't until grade 10 that Daniel Benoit could look at a photo of his mom without throwing up. Today, he wishes he could see more. Especially for his own son, Dominic, who is 4.
Everything that happened to her and the red flags that I've seen, I can educate my son from an early age and basically teach him how to treat women the right way.
It was a night of unfortunate drama in East End, St. John's. It began in this apartment building off Torbay.
My name is Lauralee Gillingham. I am the surviving daughter of my mom, who was murdered, Brenda Gillingham. Cecil Pendergast murdered her.
39-year-old Brenda Gillingham began dating Pendergast in the mid-90s. Her teenage daughter, Lauralee, didn't like him from the start.
He had her completely brainwashed. She wasn't allowed to see any of her family or anything. She wasn't allowed to be attentive to me.
Pendergast had control, knew where she was, and watched the apartment, even when they were in a relationship. Then she took control and broke it off. On July 27, 2000, Cecil Pendergast came to collect his things.
And she said, "Oh, I'll be over tonight." Right. "It'll all be over tonight," she said. This is the emergency exit door. It's always locked, but the reason why he came to this door and not the front door is because there are no cameras here. Okay. He came up and he banged on the door. One of the children from the apartment recognized him as Brenda's boyfriend, so they ran and let him right in. He went down the hall to the second apartment and drove himself into the door, taking off our welcome sign as he did, screaming, "I'm gonna f***ing kill you."
Pendergast was intoxicated and brought a 12-gauge shotgun. Lauralee's 14-year-old brother was home at the time.
He heard a bang. He said, "Okay, that's just the barbecue." He said he heard another bang. "Okay, that's just the barbecue." Then he said he heard a big bang. And he said, "That's not the barbecue." And he ran up over the stairs. And the first thing he saw, what he told me, was what he thought Mom had played a joke on him and thrown spaghetti onto the wall. And when he looked down, it wasn't. It was her face, it was her head, it was her brain. I don't come here. I try to avoid it at all costs coming here. This was her in her 20s. Her smile is beautiful. It's contagious. You can't help but smile when you look at her big, beautiful smile.
Today, Lauralee Gillingham is left with just photos and lots of questions. What happened has changed her as a woman and colored the way she raised her own child, a son.
He filled my heart. He filled the hole in my heart. It's still there, but having him was the best thing that ever happened to me, saved my life.
Lauralee taught her son how to treat women and never thought she would be mistreated herself.
I really thought I would know. I ended up in a relationship a few years ago, actually, that I was being abused verbally.
She knows the signs and knows the consequences. Unlike her mom, Lauralee made a plan, got an apartment and an emergency protection order. She made a clean break, and today she's an advocate.
Domestic violence relationships can and will end in homicide. That's the ultimate ending, the ultimate control. If I can't have her, nobody can. The detail needs to come out. Murder is not, it's not pretty.
Artist Mary Evans was a 24-year-old mom of two. Her killer was a man close to her. After a day of drinking, Scott Gauthier strangled Evans using her own rawhide necklace. 6-year-old Amena and her younger brother were left with just memories of a mom.
We used to go for lots of walks downtown. We used to make Rice Krispie squares every chance that we could get. We would go to the store and get caramel squares, and we would jump on the bed and play airplane, and all the great moments you can have with a mom we had.
Amena Evans Harlick is about the same age now as her mom was when she died, and she looks just like her.
It's like the best thing to look like my mom because I think she's the most beautiful woman in the entire planet, and you know, to look like her is a blessing.
With so few years together, Amena loves hearing stories about her mom. Like her time in the art scene in downtown St. John's, it helps dull the ache of those missing moments.
I see around every day daughters with their mothers, and I'm jealous. I had my first boyfriend and my first heartbreak, and I couldn't run to my mom.
She wants to keep the name Mary Evans alive.
I'm really scared, and that has stuck with me since that day.
Amena testified at the inquiry into murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls. She vows to keep talking and for people to never forget.
It kind of feels like it's something that we can't talk about, even though we should talk about it. We're losing so many women and so many mothers and daughters and just people in general, that something needs to be done. And, you know, if no one stands up for them, who is?
The man who killed Lauralee's mom pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. His parole eligibility was set at 15 years.
I hope he rots, because he deserves this. He's a bastard. Finally, we could rest now. We're going straight to the graveyard and tell Mom it's all over.
But it wasn't over.
No, that's not what happened at all. There were constant appeals. There were, you know, court dates. Cecil Pendergast is out now. He's happy. He has a girlfriend. He has a new life.
Lauralee Gillingham wants stricter sentences to deter others from committing the same crimes. She also wants an online database of convicted woman abusers so people can know what they're getting into.
Every unjust sentence bullies the victim. They don't think about us. My mom doesn't get to be escorted around, right? She doesn't get to go on day parole. She doesn't get to come back after 15 years, right? But he does.
Back in Stephenville, Daniel Benoit plans to face his mother's killer at his next parole hearing. Dale Ogden was released in 2016 and began dating again. Ogden breached his conditions and is currently back in jail. Daniel's ready to see him face to face, to show that despite it all, he's grown into a good man and father in spite of him.
You got the better of her, but you'll never get the better of me.
Ariana Kelland, CBC News, Stephenville.